There's one Bible. So the 6 books are extra? Or the 6 books are covered by the same? These books are the same. Are they the same? You believe in them? You don't believe in them? Okay, I respect it. You are respectful to them. I like it. You're not my brother. You're not my brother. When you lie, you're not my brother. Yeah, your brother is humanity. No, your brother. If you are lying, by the way, they are criminals.
He's interrupting me now. Let me respond to what he's saying.
I answer you the same.
Canons may be different, but the books are the same. There's different canons, there's different books in canons, but the books are the same. They're identical.
I told you earlier, when I asked you a question, you said to me, you tried to manipulate.
No, I just wanted.
So due to this, and I told you I don't want to talk to you. Am I right?
Oh, wait, can I discuss
with
you
then? Am I right?
Why do you not want to discuss with me?
Because you were saying rude, you were rude. That's it.
Wait,
so that's
how was I being rude?
Firstly, you interrupt. Firstly, I didn't welcome you in the discussion.
No, can you welcome me into the discussion now?
Now here, what are the topics of the discussion before we start?
So you said to the woman.
No. I want you to leave what I said to the woman. Leave what I said to the woman.
I want you to ask you about the veil of Allah. That's fine.
The veil of Allah. I'm not interested in discussion.
Wait.
I want to
So he has a free Quran stand about Islam, but he's refusing to engage to a question.
You say you come to preach.
So why? What's
one second. So are you dictating what are we discussing about?
What?
So
Islam.
You came here. We're not discussing about Islam.
Wait.
We're discussing
This
about
is
Christianity.
I am inviting him to a discussion. I'm inquiring about the veil of Allah. This is a Quran stand in Speaker's Corner, and he does not want to discuss. Why? Because he does not like me as a character.
Yes. Basically yes. You're right. That's it.
So I'm just curious. I'm just curious. I'm curious. So when your Dawah-wise YouTube channel admits that you're boycotting Christians because you do not need them for content, does this A, show that you're intellectually dishonest and you only do it for the views, or B, you're scared of Christians?
None of them.
Okay, so he's not scared and he wants to have a fruitful discussion. I'm inviting for that discussion to take place now.
Not with you.
Why?
I don't want
You can discuss with me on the attributes of God.
I'm inviting you, discuss with me. I will ask you about Islam.
I would happily have a discussion with you on God's attributes.
Why are you wearing a mask?
I'm wearing a mask because what I say is more important than who I am.
I prefer to talk to someone with
You prefer to someone who to talk about who's less learned?
I have no problem to show my face to you.
I have no problem to speak to you, but who we are doesn't matter, but what we say matters. Truth isn't person dependent, but it's dependent upon the evidence in which.
Because you say here, I rejected many people who came with a veil, who came with covering their face. I rejected many people due to this because I prefer someone comes through with a discussion. No problem, because if you are genuine about what you're talking about, what's the problem showing your face?
Do you think that the truth of an interlocutor is dependent upon who they are or on what they say?
It depends. Here it depends. If someone is so scared to show his character, who's showing his face, that means there's something wrong in the
What if someone just doesn't want to show their face because they don't want to build themselves up to be a macho personality like many other people at the corner?
Okay.
What if what someone says is actually more important than who they are? Because if I was to say...
come in.
Okay, cool. Would you like to discuss on... Can I ask you a question?
Since you came here, on our platform, I was here. I didn't go to you,
Okay, I asked you a question over there. Can I ask you the question, are Allah's attributes really distinct from his essence?
It depends what do you mean by Allah's attributes, and it depends. Here, what we know...
Okay, so for example, Ar-Rahman.
Okay, now here you're dictating now.
Okay, sorry, you go ahead.
So, when we're talking about the attributes of Allah, they are attached to Him. For example, when we talk about Ar-Rahman, He is the one with His mercy, Tabarak wa Ta'ala.
Yes.
So it is attached to Him. It is His essence. Now, some of the attribute of Allah, they call essence attribute of Allah, which is related to Him, and some of His attribute which is related to His actions.
Yes.
For example, that God is a creator in His essence. He's a creator. And as well, when He create things, when God create things, this part of His action. So can you please?
Okay.
give some gap, please. You close to me. Come.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, why? I don't want someone behind me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So God's actions, are they necessary or contingent?
I don't feel comfortable by you be behind me. If you come, I just don't feel comfortable.
Okay, so can I stand here?
Just stand there. So I like to see people, my opponent on the other side.
Yeah.
No,
Are God's actions necessary or contingent? Are these actions modally indiscernible?
Now here, going back to the point, we don't need to go into philosophical discussions in terms
of philosophical question, to be fair.
So that's why for us, where my school of thought is, we don't go into philosophical argument in terms of talking about the divine, rather than to go to the concept of the divine, to God. Firstly, we know that God is, for example, is all-knowing, all-powerful, has independent will. And by the way, after finishing these questions, I need to ask some questions, yeah?
Yeah, but I would like to finish this dialogue with you.
For how long? Because I don't want to keep it
because I want to get to the bottom of this, because you say...
So here, I didn't finish it.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, where I came from, what I studied, for example, we know that the attributes of Allah is either related to His essence. For example, God is, has a face that befits His majesty and glory. God has hands that befits His majesty and glory. That's what we believe as Ahl Sunnah. And as well, we believe God is merciful, tabarak wa ta'ala, in terms of His essence. God is a creator in terms of His essence, and so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to the action attribute of Allah, when He does things, when He do things, so those are related to His actions. For example, when God initiated creating something, this is an action attribute, yeah? And we don't say it's distinct from Him. We say when He creates something, that is something which is His action. That's what He did. Now, there is a consequence of that action, which is the creation, etc. And as well, when we go to the point of in terms of His, for example...
I'm just noting down what you're saying.
Yeah. So then write it down, maybe in the future. So, and then as well, when we talk about His actions, which is certain actions of Allah Azza wa Jal, for example, His speech. God speaks in terms of His essence. And as well, when He initiates some speech, this become an action of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we mean that, as simple as that. We don't go into these philosophical arguments, rather than we go to the root and the bottom of the point to say, these are action attributes of Allah, and this is related to His essence. Okay. So that's why I said to depend.
Okay, so you started off what you said by saying we don't philosophize about these things. The problem with that is you've made multiple philosophical statements about God. For example, you are predicating qualities that you ascribe to God, which is going to involve notions of being and predication, which are branches of philosophy of metaphysics. So you're already appealing to philosophy when you talk about God. I'm just saying there isn't an arbitrary stopping point to this. You're giving an arbitrary stopping point. Now, I asked you, are the actions of God... I asked you... I'm still talking, by the way.
By the way, you're judging, because again...
but wait, but I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah,
okay?
By the way, for how long? Because you judge what I said.
Because I'm trying to get down to the bottom of Allah's attributes. Because I have an argument about Allah's attributes, which would be interesting for you to answer.
I used philosophical argument. Based on what?
Okay, so for example, you predicated things of God. You ascribed qualities to Him. For example, you said Allah is Ar-Rahman. This is a predication. Predications are part of the branch of philosophy known as metaphysics. You have to import some understanding of being. For example, you either have to go with analogia entis, you either have to go with a univocity of being, or you have to go with the equivocity of being. These are all branches of metaphysics which you're presupposing when you give arguments about Allah. And then I asked you the question, notice that I originally asked you the question, are Allah's attributes of actions modally indiscernible, meaning are they necessary or contingent? You didn't answer the question, you just rambled about God's attributes, no offense. And then when you made a statement before, and I'd like you to clarify as well, you said that these attributes are not distinct from God. If there is no real distinction, by the way, by real distinction, I don't mean separation. I just mean that there isn't an identity between two things in extramental reality. If there isn't this lack of identity between two things in extramental reality, then God would be identical to Al-Rahman, God would be identical to being all-powerful, and this wouldn't be the Sunni Aqidah, this would be a Shia Aqidah of divine simplicity, which is what I'm going to argue for in this conversation.
Okay.
So would you say there is a real distinction between Allah and His attributes?
To the point. You see here, you just only judged based on what you know rather than based on what I know. When I'm using my argument, I didn't use philosophical arguments. I use what God has described Himself in the Quran. So I use the Quran as a source of information. So when God described himself as a Rahman, so we use that Allah has said about himself as a Rahman. When Allah said that وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, that Allah has spoke to Moses in speech, that means God has the attribute of speech. So he spoke to Moses and Moses heard him, which means it's speech. So that's why it's not a philosophical argument. It is something that Allah has said something, and he has said it to who? To his prophets and messengers, peace be upon them. And similarly, for example, when Allah has described that he has created Adam with his 2 hands, so we use back again what Allah has described himself. I didn't go into any philosophical argument. I didn't open any book of philosophy to tell you this. I'm using solely the Quran as a source of information, and to say to you, this is what God has described himself in the Quran, and we will use this. We will not go into this. Are they distinct or are they not distinct? Because God didn't tell us this. But to your information as well, it doesn't matter who agrees with the Sunni Aqidah, with our Aqidah, or it doesn't matter who agrees or disagrees. It matters what we believe in. We believe Allah as a Rahman, and He is the merciful one, which is describing himself and describing his attribute as a Rahman. And
Yo, what are you saying, bro?
That's all. So we said this. I think you are not focused. Go on, Hassan.
I broke down what you said. I'm direct. No, don't run away.
Because, but what did you say?
I said don't run away from the discussion. I would like to have a discussion with you. I'm noting down what you said.
Since you said this, I'm going to run away.
Okay, so you're going to run away. So you don't want to answer that Allah's attributes.
Because when you are rude, I will say to you, go in peace.
You said that you don't use philosophical notions for God, but you predicated multiple things of God using...
Did I go into personal things about you?
You said that I was distracted because I was writing things on my phone. I asked you if that's okay.
So that's why.
I think that you're looking for an excuse to get out of this discussion.
I don't need to have an excuse.
Okay, so why then use an excuse to flee from the discussion?
When someone worshipping Allah,
I would like to actually give a response to what you've said.
You worship a human being. So for me,
okay, so let me respond to what you said.
For me, and
okay, let's ad hominem fallacies. Let's talk about the actual topic that we're talking about.
So
you've accused me. Okay, you've answered, and now I'm going to respond to your answer because your answer is incoherent. You said that you've not made any philosophical notions about God, but you have said things in this discussion. God has a hand. God has a face. God has 2 right hands. God is Ar-Rahman. When we say these things, we are imploring philosophical notions such as the philosophy of language. So, for example, when I say a word, the word in itself doesn't contain inherent cognitive statements, but the word is pointing towards something in reality. So what we are doing when we say God is Ar-Rahman, we are imploring something about being, and we are predicating that of God. You're using philosophical presuppositions. Now, when you say that Allah has 2 right hands, what does 2 right hands mean? Is it a non-cognitive statement? Can you not access the cognition of the statement?
Go in peace.
What does 2 right hands mean?
Go in peace.
Okay. So you don't want to have a debate with me? I'll shake your hand. Okay, you don't want to shake my hand because someone greeted me and I turned to greet him. That's why. I think you're looking for an excuse not to discuss, but God bless you, my friend. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. All right, let's wrap up here. Can I take the camera somewhere? Which one is your camera? And I'll move yours. Those ones are yours. Take that. All right, we'll wrap up somewhere then. Okay, can we just push back a bit so I'm not interrupting him? So I asked him, are Allah's attributes really distinct from his essence? The reason why he doesn't want to go into philosophy is because he knows that this is going to wind up in God being composite, which is where I'm leading the argument towards. He made claims in the discussion that he doesn't philosophize about God. Anytime you are speaking, making predications, saying something exists, you are engaging in philosophy. It's called metaphysics. If I say Thomas Apologia is a strong man, I'm making a predication about Thomas Apologia. This falls into studying being, studying predication, studying the notions of being. He's making all these claims about God which he can't justify. Now, the argument which I would have made to him is, one, he said God has 2 right hands, but he hasn't defined how that is. You notice I asked him in the discussion to define what it means for God to have 2 right hands. He's not going to define it. Why? Because the statement doesn't have any cognitive content. If a statement doesn't have cognitive content, you can just switch it out for anything else. The word hand now becomes equivalent to blah, blah, blah. if blah, blah, blah and hands signify the same thing, which is nothing, we can't access the content, then when you say God has two right hands, it's as meaningful as saying God has two right blah, blah, blahs. The statement is meaningless, right? So that would be argument one. Argument two is that if you say that God's attributes are less than the whole of God, which he would have to say because he is a Sunni, he believes in the Aqidah, and he believes that God's attributes are not divinely simple, identified with his essence. So he believes there's a real distinction between God and his attributes. The problem of this is that the attributes of God would become less than the subject, which is God. And if they're less than the subject, they're not the whole. So what category mereologically are they going to be in? It's going to be a part of God. And the point is that his God has parts. Now you can employ many arguments against this. For example, if God has a part which is powerful, is God powerful in virtue of his essence or his parts? He's powerful in virtue of his parts. So you have the parts of Allah which actualize the essence of Allah and perfect the essence of Allah. This is a metaphysically bankrupt position which he's employing, which is why he ran away from the debate. Notice that I'd been writing down and attentively listening to him very respectfully the whole discussion. As soon as someone comes up to me, what does he want to do? He wants to run away, look for any excuse in the discussion to run. And the reason why is because no one at Speaker's Corner is willing to actually engage in an academic discussion with Christians, but rather what they would do is run away to laymen to discuss, to pick on them, and present Islam as a macho man religion. Well, in Speaker's Corner, we have the freedom of speech to speak who we want to, so we are going to continue to challenge your claims and show you that Christianity is the true religion and Afri Aqidah, Sunni Islam is false. Thank you very much. It's Thomas Apologia. Subscribe to my channel at Thomas Apologia on YouTube. God bless you all.